Okay, hope I'm audible to you guys, right? Pratibha, Abhishek.
Yes, you are audible.
Is it quite audible or is it less voice you are hearing right now?
No, sir, it is perfect.
All right. So let me start sharing my screen. Let's just jump into the today's session. And mostly this session is was going to be quite important for you guys for your basically, interview purpose as well as moving ahead. Uh, Whenever you guys are planning to jump to the RPA projects or basically having an enterprise project, you're going to basically work on that kind of environment only, which I'm going to talk today. So let me share my screen quickly and basically, walk you through basically what is the agenda of today's session. All right. So just a second. I'll basically share my screen. Just a second. It is not allowing somehow. Okay. Okay. So let me share my screen. Please do let me know you guys are able to see my screen. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Both, right?
So,
Okay. So before starting the session, basically, I would like to talk on this one thing, basically, what we have talked in our last class. I told you, right, that UiPath has provided you one mechanism in the queue. I just told you that time that whenever we are creating a queue, right, whenever we are adding a queue, basically, it having a property over here, which is basically ask you to auto retry mechanism, right? And UiPath has now introduced one more mechanism like auto retry. Earlier it was doing only for the failed items, but now it does the auto retry for the abandoned items also. I hope this abandoned status and failed status you guys are aware of, right? Just that we do have a maximum retry limit over there, how many times we would like to retry. But the thing is that, why I was talking again to this part, because lastly I was when I was explaining to you, that time we basically saw that it was not working directly marking the failed as status, right? So let's first see that how does it is happening with UiPath, that how it works basically to retry mechanism concept, right? So let's first talk on that part. So very first, right, guys, whenever basically any queue item is being added to the queue, and if you're having a mechanism in the queue being enabled, like it allow the user to auto retry mechanism, if you enable that, then it means that whenever a transaction item is get failed, it will basically retry the that particular transaction item back again. So let me just give you a glimpse again. Let me just a second. I'll share back my screen. So what is happening over here? What it does basically, exactly. So whenever you guys are enable the auto retry mechanism. So what exactly it does? It basically over here the auto retry mechanism says that currently basically the auto retry mechanism is basically UiPath has provided with the two. One is the failed item and second one is the abandoned item as well. Okay, abandoned item as well. So when I say failed means that I told you, right, there are two types of exception can be there. One is the system exception, or I would say application exception, right? Means that some application issue occur over there, all right? Or the second one is the business rule exception, which we know already before in hand. Agree with me this part? This we have already talked, right? Business rule exception were there. So whenever we are marking a status of any transaction item as failed, and we are saying that it's a failed due to the application issue, okay? Application issue, if we are saying, that case, it is going to retry the transaction back again. right? Retry that particular transaction back again. So what UiPath does in that scenario, it basically same replica, create a same replica of your transaction, which is basically it has picked earlier, replica of the transaction. And now what it does basically, it assign that replica as new status and the previously picked one to as retried. Okay, mark that status as retried, and the new one basically which it has created the as same as the earlier copy, it basically mark it as new. Okay, and how long it does the same? Until and unless like number of transaction count you have given over there, number of retry count you have given over there, let's suppose 2 3 4 5, whatever number count you have given over there, it will going to retry that many times, again and again, if it is get failed due to the application exception only or system exception only. In the business rule exception case, it won't retry again. All right, got it, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when I say basically it going to retry means it going to retry only in the scenario when basically a system exception is being occurred. So let's see as a practical how it does that, right? So let me just stop sharing again and share my UiPath scenario back to you. Just a minute. Yeah. Hope you guys are able to see now. Or let me share the entire screen. Just a minute. Why it does so? It is basically allowing me only one window right now. Yeah. Hope you guys are now see basically the UiPath Orchestra studio, right? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we are doing over here, very basic. There is a basically UiPath basically queue over here. Okay, I have already a queue is being there in a place. This is the queue basically which we have already created in earlier, and this is a test queue. And if I go to the edit mode of this queue, if I show you the edit mode of this, you can see that I have enabled a auto retry mechanism over here only for the failed item, not for the abandoned right now, only for the failed item. And the number of retries I have given over here two means that it going to retry back again two times. All right. So what it does basically, and it's a very basic scenario right now, what we are doing over here. In this scenario, we are basically adding a transaction item to the queue, get that back transaction item, whichever we have added there, and then we are set the transaction status. But over here, at the time of setting the status, we are saying that it get failed. The reason we have mentioned like over here failed due to some reason, whatever it is. And then in the properties, if you go, there is a error type. Okay. And whenever basically you are going to initialize the error type as application, that means your transaction, if the queue has a property of auto retry is being enabled, then it going to basically create a replica of the same particular transaction item and try to basically reprocess that particular transaction item and mark the previously created or previously picked transaction item as retried. So let's see that. Let me just show you after basically doing the set transaction status. Let me just add a message box here. Okay, add a message box here. Just basically retried. I'll add here. All right. So let's see. Very first step. It's a very basic, nothing over here. We are just adding a transaction item to the queue. So you can see that currently we don't have any transaction item being added to the queue. Right now, I have just added that, right? And now it's saying retry. Let's not basically, close this message box. Let's just refresh the queue item over here. If I refresh this, so you can see that as soon as I refresh this, you can see 12 seconds ago, a transaction item is being picked, which is now status as retried, and there is a one more transaction item is being created as new. If I click on OK again, so you can see it basically, what it does, it just created a replica of the same transaction item what I have basically over here. If you see, if you go to the history of this, so you will find that it has two transaction item. First is that created the transaction item, then there is a status, then it get retry again, right? So if I show you in the details mode, you can see that two status over here. One is the retried and one is the new. So what it does, it has basically picked first one, it mark it as in progress. Then at later stage, I have set the transaction item as in progress to failed. And at the time of failed, I say that it is get failed due to the application exception. And whenever I say that it get failed due to the application exception, it going to be retry and create a same replica of that particular transaction item as status new, so that my bot can pick it up again, right? If I have involved a looping mechanism there, my bot can pick it up again, right? Agree this part, everyone? Got it?
Yes,
Pratibha?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let me go one more thing I would like to talk, because this is a pending part I thought to basically share with you, because this is very much important. And there is one more thing basically. If I go to the jobs, I show UiPath Assistant, right? In UiPath Assistant, we do have a over here, whenever currently I don't have an unattended license, so that is why I am not able to run it in an unattended mode, but I can run in an attended mode. As soon as I click on this play icon, my job is going to be started in the orchestrator, and it just basically asks me two numbers, right? Let's provide the two numbers to this process. Okay, I just say that 10 and 20 and click on OK. The main motto over here to show something to you. So whenever a job is going to execute it, it has a robot logs being generated there. Those logs are nothing but the logs basically which we have written in the code, or basically UiPath by default generates some of the logs. So like if you have utilized a log message activity, add log message activity or log message activity, the log message activity will write a plain log in your basically orchestrator job. When the job is running, actually your logs are getting generated there. So you can see that it has some of the basically are being generated by UiPath itself, like this one we haven't written, this is basically generated by UiPath. But the second one, which you can see that valid input provided by the user, then this is a count basically, or you can say this is a sum of the number basically 30 over here. Then again it says that process completed, this is we have written, and then this is a auto generated one. So these are the nothing but a logs. And how these logs get over here? By the log message activity. And in the log message activity, we do have multiple properties, multiple basically log label over here. This we have already talked, like info label, warning label, error label, fatal label, trace label. These are the log label we do have. And whenever we set the label and write any log message over here, and if we are running our message either in an attended or in an unattended mode, that time the jobs logs get generated, which are very much handy whenever basically we would like to monitor if our job is not basically done what the expected outcome is it for it from that process, right? So we can monitor our process, or if it is get failed due to some unknown reason, we can monitor that part, right? That is a log message. Again, if in the log basically property, if you just click on the view details, so it will show some kind of these details to you, log message detail, right? And this is a raw message, this is a, you can say, a raw detail, which is basically provided by the UiPath itself. You are not adding any queue or sorry, any key. Whenever basically you are generating the log message, you are not supposed to write any of these key. Basically you haven't done anything. If you see in the code, I haven't done anything such basically in my code to basically provide a message as a message valid input. I just provide a message basically, what is my log message, right? Other than that, I'm not providing any two things I provide over there. What is my log label, and the second thing is that what is the message of the log, right? So those two things I can provide. But other than that, you can see that over here timestamp is there, there is a fingerprint is being there is a Windows identity from where the who is the user basically, from which basically this log is get generated, via which this log is get generated, basically the Windows identity over here, machine name from which machine this process is get executed, that is being there. Then file name, job ID, what is the job ID? Basically every job, whatever the job is being running in the orchestrator or process is being running in the orchestrator, which we call it as job, So that job has a unique job ID basically, which is populated over here. Like the same, who is the robot basically, who has performed this task? That is basically a robot name. So these are nothing but auto generated some extra information, you can say, by the UiPath itself. We are not supposed to basically write any of these apart from the message and log level over here in this log details right now. It is being auto generated or by default generated by UiPath, which are very much handy if you would like to basically further, cascade your logs into another systems. There are systems basically, you will learn basically, gradually, moving ahead. I would say don't basically stuck to the UiPath orchestrator or UiPath studio. Try to explore that what is UiPath inside as well. There is basically Kafka. There is a, you can say, UiPath basically Kivana integration with UiPath, which basically, or Splunk. Those are the tool which provide a meaningful. Currently this is a just a text, right? But for business user, this text is no longer valid, right? I can't say that anything from this information business can understand. But as a final result, via the log, I can generate some business KPI or some charts basically, maybe in a pie chart, maybe in a bar chart or something I can generate, via which the business can understand how much basically the ROI or return of investment from for them this process is generating, or the bot is generating for them, right? So that kind of basically mechanism the logging functionality provide by basically to the UiPath, and this logging functionality further can be used to the multiple systems were there, like Kibana. There is basically a, you can say Splunk were there, Power BI is there. Those are the reporting tool basically. Okay, and these reporting tool can utilize this UiPath log messages to further basically cascade and show the detail in a more better way to the business. Got it, everyone? This part?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me just a second. I'll come back. Just a second. Okay. Now, as we understood this part, let's see that how we can add one more key over here, extra key over here if you would like to add. How we can do that? Currently, we are just able to add a log message, not nothing else apart from that, right? Agree? We can basically just add a message over here, and as soon as we add the log message, that get added to the orchestrator, that get added to the orchestrator as a log message only, as a message basically, right? But no extra key basically I can't add directly. So there is an activity in UiPath called add log field activity. Okay, whenever I say that add log field activity means that in a log message I would like to write some extra key value pair or extra information which going to be handy in my further processing of the, you can say, those reporting tool. Those reporting tool are going to utilize that key value pair to showcase the business KPI basically. Okay, and this is basically a way of another basically to write a log message in the orchestrator, or you can say write a log message. So let's just basically provide over here a field basically. It basically asks you provide two things. One is the key and what is the value of that key. So I'll just provide over here testing. Okay, testing, and over here value I would say UiPath training maybe, right? This is my value. This is my add log field. Okay, as soon as I'm done basically with my add log field, because suppose that, think about this way, right now I'm running this as a one individual step. You can think about like whatever step I have highlighted right now, this is a one individual step which basically doing some action, and I would like to perform this action again and again in the some application. Maybe let's suppose you do have a PDF files. Okay, and in that PDF file you would like to extract the data first and then upload that extracted data into some web system. All right, but currently let's suppose you have one single file only, but tomorrow if you user basically or business is provided you the batch of the PDF file, Out of those batch input file, you just need to first of all extract one by one information from those PDF and then upload those PDF extracted data into some web system. So over here, one PDF file is going to be one transaction item for you, right? This part you guys agree with me? Yes or no, or it is get confusing.
Sir, can you repeat it?
So currently, think about this way, because I would like to talk on this add log field. There is a basically, I'm just giving you some example right now. So think about like you have a one basically process where you have one PDF file, and from that PDF file, you need to extract the user information. Okay. And after extracting the user information, you need to upload that information into some web system. Got it so far?
Yes,
Now, this is a one step. But let's suppose tomorrow business give you a batch of input files, or you can say PDF file. Means when I say batch means currently you have only one, but tomorrow they are going to give you maybe 20 in different user information PDF file. You need to perform the same step. First you need to pick the PDF file, you need to read the data, then you need to upload that data into the web system, and you need to do this step again and again for all of the PDF files whichever the business user has provided. So over here, can I say that the PDF is going to be my one transaction item? Yes or no? Can I
sir,
say that
one,
the PDF is going to be
sir,
as a one transaction item for me? Because each PDF file is nothing but it's basically an individual process where basically I need to first extract the information from the PDF and then upload the data into one web system. So over here, can I say that the one PDF file is one transaction item, is equivalent to the one transaction item?
yes, sir,
That is basically what I would like to say over here. Whenever I add something as a add log field, as soon as my transaction is being completed, my responsibility is that whatever the custom key I have added in the logs, I need to remove that log basically. And there is a remove log field activity is being present. And over here in the remove log field, you just need to provide the key. And earlier, what key we have added? We have added a key as testing, and this is the key we need to just provide over here to remove, so that it won't be basically copy paste to the another transaction item back again. Getting my point? Currently, I have added something in the one transaction item as a key. The value of this testing is maybe right now UiPath training, but I don't want to repeat the same value with another transaction item, right? So my concern is that over here, as soon as I have added a transaction item as a basically as soon as I have added a log field, extra log field in my log message, my responsibility basically that once my transaction item is being completed, I need to basically remove that log field. Got it?
yes, sir,
So that it won't be re-irritate the, or you can say repeat the same value in each of the transaction item back again with the same value. I don't want that. I want that it will basically, if it is there, if the next transaction item is, let's suppose if this step is again going to be executed, then that time there is another transaction item, and that time it will going to add a key again, but the value going to be changed. Maybe right now I have given a static value, but for that time, maybe runtime I have written over here something, maybe dynamic value, some variable, which is going to be differ, right? So it's my responsibility that I am every time basically once my transaction item is being completed, I need to remove the that particular extra key what I have added in the log message. Let me show you how it looks like first of all. So let's just run this again. All right. Yeah. If I go again to my jobs over here, I won't see anything because it is being triggered from the UiPath Studio. Because whenever we are running anything from the studio, we won't be able to see that. But the logs get generated. You can go to the log section, and over here you can see that there are so many logs get generated over here. This is the very first one. Basically, it shows you. You can say uh, you know uh, you can say just basically last hour. All right, it show you last hour basically logs, whatever basically get executed over here. So currently it going to be show my log here. And if I go back to my log again, and if I refresh this part, you can see that it has basically generated this logs for me. And if I click on any of the log field over here, or a basically log message field over here, you can see that a key being generated now for me called testing, and the value is UiPath training. And as soon as my transaction is being completed, you won't be able to see that key over here being added by the UiPath. It won't be there till this it is there, transaction ended. Or no, transaction ended also being generated by UiPath only, so it is not there. Till here only my key is being generated. Then after basically we have already deleted, so it says transaction ended. Then basically over here also we don't have that key is being present. So the main motto is that why we use the add log field basically to write some extra metadata information, which further going to be utilized by some other reporting tool. Might be a, you can say, Splunk, Kibana, or maybe Power BI or something else. They might use those key value pair to represent the log message in more better way to the business KPI. Got it? What it add log message does? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now it's basically lot talk in this, and we have already covered so many things which are now going to help you in the another topic. Now we're going to talk on the UiPath RE framework. Okay. Let me basically remove everything here and start the RE framework concept. I hope you guys are aware of state machine because Maninder has already took that session,
Yes, sir.
right? So let me just basically brief you on that. All right. So let me introduce another topic basically which we are going to talk now, which is called RE framework. So guys, don't basically worried about this name itself as a framework. Don't be worried about itself. Just think about state machine. Just think about that. What is state machine? Can anybody tell me what is state machine?
Sir, it has multiple inputs as well as multiple outputs.
But it doesn't make any definition to that multiple input and multiple output, Abhishek. Like, because anything can have multiple. Like, I'll just give you the example. Now you will basically in a problem basically when you say that statement, because there is a invoke workflow activity. A workflow can have multiple input and multiple output as returned to you. Does it the a workflow also a state machine?
No, sir. Sorry, sir.
No,
My
right?
definition was incomplete.
Can you try, or maybe Pratibha? Can you tell me what is state machine?
I Even I don't have a better definition than Abhishek.
Maninder has took that session, I believe, right? Okay, no worries. I just give you that. So the state machine is nothing but, okay, state machine basically it's nothing but it's another type of creating UiPath automation script. First thing is that. Nothing else. Automation script. How many type of way we do have in UiPath to write automation script? Tell me, guys. Don't be silent, Abhishek. How many ways you create the automation script in UiPath?
Sir, first is sequence.
Uh-huh.
Second, we can create flowchart.
Correct.
Then state machine.
Correct.
And Fourth one is
Global exception handler, let it be. But you are right,
yes, sir.
absolutely right, right? So this state machine is nothing but it's again another approach, or you can say another way of creating a you can say automation flow in UiPath. Now, the state machine cover, it's basically having two things. One is that you can say state, and second one is that end state, right? Two things it cover. I'll talk on that. It comes up with two flavor. First, let's talk about state. So the state having three things. One is that entry point, or you can say entry block, right? Second thing is that it has exit block. Every state has three things. And third thing, it has transition. Agree with me or not? Or I need to show you. Let's just jump to that part as well. As a brief, I'll show you. So let's just basically over here itself, just basically, we'll drag a state, right? We just basically drag over here one state machine, okay? And in the state machine, if I toggle it down, you can see that it maybe have a state, okay? Or it may have a final state, or you can say end state, right? End state or a final state. Let me drag both. Now you can see that every state has by default three things. One is that entry point, means when the state is going to be executed. State is nothing but it's just a flow chart again. It's kind of a sequence itself, but it basically divided in three blocks. One is the state. Basically, in a state, you do have three blocks. One is the entry point, means that as soon as the state is going to be started executing, first thing first is that entry point is gets executed. Okay. Then the exit point, means once the transaction is basically, or the process is being completed in the state, in the entry point, now it basically exit from that state. So that is a exit point. Then there is a transition, means that a state can connect it with multiple states. How? Via the transition. Let me show you. So over here, I do have only one state. Let's call it as first state. Okay, first state. And now again drag another state over here. Let me, for a time being, basically drag it a little bit down. Final state, we'll talk later. Again, we'll say that second state. Just name it, okay? Nothing else. Second state. Then there is another state. Let's suppose third state. Currently, if you see that these states are individual, if I connect this one is get connected with my starting block. Now you can see that a state, first state must have at least one transition. As soon as a state being connected to the state machine, it should have it should have one transition, and transition always say that what step next, what need to be executed next. A state can have three blocks. One is the entry point, one is the exit point, one is the transition. Entry is that as soon as the state is get executed, the entry block is executed. Let me put a log message here, right? A log message saying that log from the first state block, first state entry block, let's suppose. Okay, got it? Let's put a info over here. Now again put another log message here in the exit block also. Log from the first state exit block. Now you guys understood? We can have in the entry block. In the entry block, we'll write our code which need to be executed whenever a state is going to start. And exit block is that if you want to perform some action, as soon as my state is completed, now my working is done in the entry block, might be something that can be XYZ. But the thing is that as soon as my walking is being done in the entry block, or the task is being completed in the entry block, I would like to do some extra step. That extra step can involve in the exit step. It doesn't say that it cannot involve in the entry step. I can write as many steps I want to perform in the entry step, that is there. But I am saying that once my entry is being completed, all the things, whatever, maybe 1,000 steps were there, I have completed all the 1,000 steps. Now the next step is that I want to perform, once the 1,000 step is being completed in the entry part, I want to perform some extra. Maybe that step is only going to be executed once my state is getting exit. That particular state is getting exit, then only it get executed. So that means I would like to put that part in the exit block of the state. Got it so far? This part is everyone understood?
Yes, sir.
Then there is a transition. Transition is nothing but it basically allowing you to connect from one state to another. That state can be a state itself or can be a final state. When I say final, means that that is a end state or end goal for me. Not end goal, means that that is a final step which I want to perform. So I can connect a state to a one or many final state. One or many final state. You can see that if I put over here final state, one more final state over here, I can do that. I can connect this state, this final state also, and this final state also. A state can have multiple final state, right? Got it? And how we will connect with the state, one state to another, with the transition only. Final just forgot right now. Just think about how the state is get executed, or how the one state is get connected to the another. It basically via the transition only. So to connect the transition, we just need to drag a line to the one state to the another, and you can see that as soon as we does that, it generate a t1 over here. This t1 is nothing but, if you hover that, basically if you click on that line and if you go to the properties, nothing but it's a transition, and you can name this transition. I'll say first state transition. And the transition can have a condition. A transition, now again one more thing is being there. A transition means that might be a possibility that I want to go to this second state, but there should be one criteria. I would say, if if user has, let's suppose, let's think about basic example. We would like to basically get a number from the user, and then we can say that whether that number is greater than 5, then only we would like to perform, or we would like to go to the second state. So means that to going to the second state, we do have a condition. From one state to the another, we do have a condition, and that condition we can write in the transition. At the time of connecting the transition from one state to the another, we can write a condition also over here. Okay, this is nothing but a condition on the basis of which it will basically take an action. It will say that, okay, do I need to basically go to this state, and this will go to the second state only when the condition is true. So currently I am just making it as 1 equal to 1. That is just basically your understanding purpose. I am just doing that, 1 equal to 1. Whenever the 1 equal to 1 means that it will go to the second state. Now you can see that I am good with the first state, but over here if you see, I can connect this first state with the third state as well. There is no foundation. A state can connect multiple another state or a final state. There is no foundation on that part. And a state always get connected with the transition. Again, over here we can put we can put over here default state. Means that I don't care that whether that transition is true or false, or basically I don't want to perform any condition. Anyhow, I would like to execute this. So means that in that scenario, I will not include any condition in that scenario, in that transition basically. But over here, as soon as I have include two transition over here, if you see, like if I basically, again reopen this thing to you. So in the transition section, earlier you don't have anything. As soon as I have started adding the transition, you can see that it get populated to the transition section over here. First transition, then second transition, which I have added. And it will mention you what this first transition is doing. When the first transition is basically, executed, it will go to the second transition, and the transition section having a trigger part, a condition part, and the action part again. Now don't confuse. There is a state where state has three blocks: entry, exit, transition. Again, transition basically allowing you to connect from one state to another, but the transition can also have three steps. One is the trigger part. As soon as the transition is being going to execute it, if we would like to perform some action, that we can put in the trigger block. As soon as the condition is true, once my condition is true, if I would like to perform some action, then I can put that part in the, before basically going to the destination of that state, I can perform that step over here in the action part. Then my destination, that particular state is going to execute it. In this scenario, nothing but the second state. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this part we understood, but over here you can see that it's saying that trigger less transition default of state. First state must contain a condition. A state can only have one unconditional transition that has no trigger. Did you understand this part, what it's saying?
Sir,
It doesn't has.
it means if
Correct, go ahead.
sir, it means if there are no conditions which fulfills the transition part, then it will go to the default transition in which there is no argument available.
But see, we haven't given any condition over here. If you see that the theory wise, what it say that trigger less transition default of state, first state must contain a condition. It's saying there must contain a condition. A state can only have one unconditional transition that has no trigger. Please remember this part, what it's saying. A state can have only one unconditional transition that can has no trigger. Means that a state, one state to another, I cannot basically connect without a condition, because basically I can, in a state I have a trigger again, right? In this transition again I do have a trigger. If you see over here, I do have a trigger again. I cannot connect it. Without a condition, I cannot connect it. But if I basically remove this transition from here, and if I connect, I can do that. Means only one it will allow you without a condition. If you basically connect multiple state, then again you need to basically, give condition to all the states. It won't allow you to do that. Only one, if you are connected with only one transition with that state, it will fine. There is no issue with this right now if I go with this approach. But if I connect, as soon as I connect with the another state as well, now it will say to you, provide a condition to the both the part. It cannot have unconditional, because how should it basically take action which should get executed? Over here, think about this way. Currently, I told you, right? I was going to give over here 1 equal to 1, which is very basically example. Now, think yourself basically how the bot will decide, because here we haven't given any condition, and here we are saying 1 equal to 1. Let's suppose this condition is also sufficed, and this we are going to anyhow going to execute. How basically it will execute? Which step it will going to execute? It's a deadlock kind of step over here, right? Agree or
Yes, sir.
not?
Yes, sir.
It's a kind of a deadlock, right? It wouldn't able to basically identify which it need to execute it.
Yes, I understood, sir.
So that is why we need to provide a, if we are connecting multiple transition or multiple state, we need to provide every state, we need to provide a condition in a transition. Got it?
Yes, sir. Understood.
Okay. Now let's basically remove right now this part, and let's connect this one only. And instead of 1 equal to 1, let's put it as default only. I'll not give any condition over here and give a transition over here default. Let me show you basically how it get executed, and go to the default section, and over here let's put a log message so that you guys can understood the flow as well, how the flow of the code is running. I'll put it in a trigger section also. I'm putting a log message, log from trigger of the first state transition. All right, and this is a log level again info, and here I'll copy this part again, put it in the action, and log from first state. Instead of trigger, we'll say that from action, right? That's it. Now it's going to execute my second state, which is nothing but the second state. Again, I need to do the same thing. I'll copy the log message from here. This part will change the meaning, right? We'll change the meaning here, and we'll say over here, second state entry block. We'll say second state over here, we say second state exit block, right? Now, as soon as I connected with this, my basically next step is going to connect with the final state. A final state, guys, a difference with the state and final state is that a state has three blocks, basically, entry block, exit block, and a transition block. But the final state can have only one step, which is called entry block. There is no exit and transition. You can't connect multiple final, you can't connect basically a final state to the another state again. That is your end goal, that is your end step. Got it? People ask this question also, what is the difference between a state and the final state? A state can have three blocks, or you can say three sections. One is entry, one is exit, one is transition, but the final state only have one and only one basically step, which is called entry. And now I can connect my final step with the second state, and over here again I can write either a condition. If I'm going to write a condition again, it will throw a error to me saying that you can't basically, because if it is true, that is fine, but currently it is fine because it is asking that it is basically going to execute the final state as soon as my condition is being true. If not, it basically stop it over here itself. But if I would like to basically connect more state, I can connect over here as well. Like if I would like to again connect, let's suppose a state over here, if I would like to connect again. So if I would like to connect this state again, you can see that now I need to provide again a condition over here. Maybe 2 equal to 2. Another it won't give me an error. Now there is basically, it will go to the final step if basically 1 equal to 1, and if it is go basically to the second state or this state if 2 equal to 2. Got it? Means I need to provide a condition, otherwise I won't basically perform that, right?
Yes, sir.
Then basically I will say this one is end state. All right. Let's basically remove this. Let's put a default way, and let's see the how the execution over here going to be work. Let's debug this part, and let me put a over here a toggle a breakpoint so that I don't want to run further. I just want to run this part only. So let me show you the flow of the code. So see, it get executed. Let me stop it. Let's follow the logs as well over here, how it has started. So very first, if I go to the, hope you guys are able to see the log as well, right? At the bottom
Yes,
or
sir,
not?
it's visible.
You are able to see, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you can see that first it get, if I follow the log, okay, if I just little bit drag it down, okay. Now you can see that very first it say the log from first state entry block. Then what it get executed? Second one, log from trigger of the first state transition. Means that before running the exit block of the first state, what get executed, guys? What is get executed before
So
running
can you,
the transition? If you follow the output logs over here, you can see that first it generate the log message as log from first state entry block, then it says log from trigger from the first state transition, then it says log from first state exit block. Means that before running the exit block, what it get executed? Our transition block is get executed, right? Then the exit block is get executed. Got it? And then
yes,
again the log from action of the first state transition. Means then that again then basically exiting from my state, my action is going to execute it of that particular transition, and then the second state is going to start it. Got it, the flow or not? How the
yes,
flow is
sir.
going to? Very first the entry block is going to execute, then the transition is going to execute, and after running the transition it will come back to the exit block. Means transition, what step it going to execute? It will execute trigger block of the transition, then it will come back to the exit block of the state. Once it exit from the state, it will come back to the transition and it will try to see that whether there is any step performed in the action step or not. If there is mention any step in the transition block action step, it will going to execute that, then only it will going to move to the next step, which is again to the next state, maybe final state or something. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is the flow, basically a state machine, and state machine is nothing but again a transition, entry, exit blocks only. And a state machine can have a multiple basically final state, but can have only one initial state. You cannot connect. People ask this question in an interview. In a state machine, how many initial state can be there and how many final state can be there? The answer is that a state machine can have multiple final state but can have only one initial state. How I am saying this basically statement? You can't connect another state with the starting play icon over here. I cannot connect this one. I can start from this beginning point only. Here only I cannot. Either I need to remove this and then connect from here, or I need to basically connect to this part only. That is basically the only way I do have. Means that it's saying that I have can only one starting point or a one initial step in the state machine, but can have multiple final state can be present in a state machine. Got it? Because in a multiple
Yes,
final state I can connect multiple final state. See, I can connect this also in a final state. With a condition, I can write some condition over here, or maybe if both don't have any condition, then it's fine also. Again, I can write one more final state over here. If you see, I can write one more final state which can going to be connect again to this, but with the condition maybe I can write over here, maybe 2 equal to 2, right? Currently, just for example, I'm showing to you. So if I'm saying that 2 equal to 2, I can basically connect that, right? Then I can again give to this also a condition. Here also, maybe 1 equal to 2, right? So this is the way of basically connecting to the multiple conditions or multiple transition to the multiple final state. In a state, I can have multiple final state, but at a starting point, I can have only one state which can connect to my state machine. Everyone got that or not? Because people ask this question
yes,
in
sir.
it. Okay. Now let's basically talk about this RE framework, guys. So now the RE framework, if you basically see, because I have covered everything, whatever is there in the RE framework, because I'm not going to basically take more time to this part now. The RE framework is nothing but it's a framework which suffice all of the things, whatever as a beginning or starting point to start any of the project. When I say everything is being there, means that it provide you the logging functionality, okay, by itself. It provide you the proper exception handling in place. You don't need to do extra exception handling over there. Okay. Then it provide you the state machine mechanism only, so that you can perform the steps in a more transactional and modular manner, transactional or modular way. Got it? So RE framework, it's nothing but it's a skeleton which UiPath provided you, very basic basically. It's a skeleton, you can modify that, and that skeleton have everything in place. A logging mechanism in place, or exception handling in place. It's basically built on the top of the state machine only. The RE framework is get built on the top of the state machine only. And it has by default 4 state is being present there. When I say 4 state is being present, means that very first state is called init state or the initialization state. Initialization state. Second state is called the get transaction state. Get transaction state. Third stage is process transaction. And the final state is called end state, which is nothing but the final state. By the name itself, these states are very much meaningful. At the initialization state, we basically do all the bot configuration detail, whatever the bot needed to run as a basically configuration detail bot needed, those kind of thing we do in the initialization state. If we want to basically, let's suppose we having a database in a process automation, we are using a database, so we can build the connection with the database in the initialization state only. Or not only the database, let's suppose we are in involving any of the application to automate, let's suppose a web application, and if it is require a logging, so that logging functionality need to be done. It's not basically mandatory, but the thing is that this initialization state is say that whatever basically as a initialization purpose, if you want to perform any initialization step, which is might be a reading the config data for the bot, reading the config detail. When I say config is nothing but the configuration detail, right? Some configuration bot needed to perform some action further. Might be a asset which we would like to read from the orchestrator. So those kind of steps can be done in the initialization state only. Then the basically, if you want to basically connect with any of the application, maybe a web system we would like to connect, and that web system very first required a logging like a ACME test site. So that logging functionality we can perform in this initialization state, so that we can reuse the logged in dashboard in all the other further steps, right? And this get transaction, this part, this get transaction and this process transaction is kind of a looping thing. If we would like to basically perform if we have 100 records is being present somewhere, and if we would like to individually perform this 100 records one by one, we call those one record as a transaction only, one transaction only, and that transaction is going to first of all pick it up in this get transaction state activity, and that transaction basically might be a queue item, or can be, you can basically change the UiPath RE framework flow. Rather than using a UiPath queue, that time maybe you can utilize a data table itself by passing a data row, or maybe some other collection index value directly, that you can change in the get transaction. So get transaction will help you to get a particular transaction item from a collection or from the queue. Okay, from means it is basically helping you to fetch the item. Once you fetch the item, now your basically ask is that to process that, what you want to do in that fetched transaction, right? I gave you the example that you do have a PDF file, right? Maybe you do have 100 PDF file, and each of the file you need to first of all read the user information, right? User information need to be read it from there. So user info, you basically first of all read each PDF file, you read that, then you basically upload that extracted data into some web system. So over here, I can say that each of the record or each of the PDF file over here is nothing but it's my one transaction item. So I would like to perform this step again and again. So over here, this is nothing but it's a looping concept for me. So means first I will fetch something, I'll process that, then I will basically mark the status of the transaction and then proceed back again to fetch the next one, and then again process that. Like this step is continue, and at last when I process everything, it will go to the end state. Got it? This part got it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let's jump to the RE framework directly. How it looks like. So guys, how you basically create the RE framework? If you go to your home, if you click on the robotic process automation framework over here at the template section, you just need to click on it. And once you click on it, it will provide you the, you can name your project. Basically, you can say that UiPath training, maybe underscore, maybe I am giving this like that only, RE framework. Okay. And then basically you can provide a description, something over here, location where you want to save. I just would like to click on create. I would say yes. Let's open it. It is basically adding some dependencies for me. Now, if I go to the project section, so over here in the project section, you can see that it has so many things being present in the project. Earlier, I don't have these my kind of folder structure there. There is a data structure, there is a documentation, there is an exception screenshot, there is a framework folder, right? Again, there is a test folder, then there is a main.xaml file, right? So these are the basically auto generated by UiPath, and this is the structure being look like of the RE framework. Don't basically try to basically have basically scared of this part, this structure. It's just that a state machine architecture, nothing else. It's nothing basically. That is why I cover very first that state machine, and that is why I cover all of the things. Whatever basically we are using over here, I have already covered those things. If I show you that, if we go to that particular state machine, you will see that there is an activity basically we are using over here. If I scroll it down a little bit, so in the state machine we are using so many things over here. Just a second, guys. So over here in the initialization state, if I go over here, so very first step, if you see over here, we just covered this add log activity. Yes or no? We just covered that add log activity. It's
Yes, sir.
adding a key in the queue. The key is nothing but the log app business process name, the process name only, nothing else. And the process name, it is reading from the dictionary. It's this is config is nothing but a dictionary. I'll talk on that. But I would like to say the architecture wise, don't scared what this architecture is look like over here. It's nothing but what we have seen just basically as a state machine. So the RE framework, it's built on top of the state machine only, and it has 4 state. Very first state is the initialization state. Means that whatever the initialization step we want to perform, that is go inside this initialization state only. When I say what are the initialization, means that if you want to read some configuration related data, which is basically bot is further going to use to take action, so that is say that initialization, that is going to read in the initialization state only. If you want to basically log into some application, that going to basically establish in the initialization state only. If we want to basically having a database connection or something, that is also going to be in the initialization state only. And now if you see that in a initialization state, we have two transition over here. How many transition we do have? If I basically open it down and go to the below transition section, how many transition I do have over here? How many over here?
Two.
Two. Can you name it? The first transition
System
name is
exception. And
Ah,
successful.
correct. System exception. No, no, no. System exception failed, and the second one is the successful. These are the two transition UiPath has basically provided over here. If you click on the transition, you will go to the first transition. The transition again have same section, trigger, action, and the condition block. So what it say? It will go to the end process when their system exception is not nothing. This system exception is nothing but it's a variable. It's nothing. It's just that variable. If you go to the variable section, and if you see over here in the system exception, let me just show you. So over here there is a system exception variable. Yeah, so this is the variable. What is the type of this variable? What is the
System
type of this
exception.
variable? It's a
System dot exception.
system exception only, system dot exception variable type, right? So this is basically UiPath is checking just that, is that there is some exception is being occurred, and that exception is system exception. So means this variable is not nothing. In that case, there is something in this variable. This variable is get initialized, right? And in that scenario, if that is true, if there is some exception is being occurred, then it will go directly to the end process by basically writing this log as log message, and it will go to the end process, which is my final state. This end process is nothing but it's my final state. You can see that it has just the entry state, nothing else. They have written so many things, just toggle it down, but you can see that it's just the end state is nothing, it's a final state only, right? Agree? Again,
Yes, sir.
there is a successful transition they have. See, if I go bottom again, and if I click now in a successful transition, you can see that in a successful transition they said that system exception is nothing, means that there is no system exception is being generated in a initialization step. There is no exception is being occurred. We can go happily in the get transaction status, which is basically a next step. We cannot basically go to the, now in that scenario we will not go to the end state, we will go to the get transaction state. Got it?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, this transition, this state machine, this RE framework is built on the top of the state machine only, and every state over here we do have four state being present. One is the initialization state, one is the get transition state, one is the process state, and one is the end process state. And each state has is its own meaning. Okay, it's an industry standard. You can't change that. There is no basically harm to change. No one is going to change why you have done that. But it's an industry standard what people are following, right? So means if they want to initialize something, they will do in this particular step only. If they want to fetch any of the data from any of the transaction, maybe let's suppose from the queue or somewhere, right? So they will go to perform this step only. And once they have the data, if they want to basically perform some action on top of that data, they will go inside this process transaction step only. They will not do anywhere else that part. Got it or not? This so far so good, everyone. So that
Yes,
I'll
sir.
move to
Got
the
it.
next now inside these blocks basically.
Hello.
Yeah, Shardon, go ahead please.
Yes. So I was just sorry, I'm a little late to this session. I was
You have just
wondering,
joined.
like, so yes.
Okay.
So I just wanted to know what did you each so each block or each portion does a different task, correct? So so this is considered like a re framework or the
Correct.
RE
This is a
framework.
Yeah, this is a RE framework, and I'm saying this RE framework because as a basically looking to this is quite maybe scared to you. What is this? Because you haven't read these things in a uh, still so far in your basic automation, right? So this RE framework is built on top of the state machine, and they have just given a basically they have given a proper annotation over here, proper name over here, what the description of this state. They have given everything, so that is why it's so large over here. But this is nothing but it's built on the top of the state
RE.
machine only.
Okay, so it's like a state machine
Correct. Correct.
connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over here you do have three state and one final state, which is nothing but this end process. Three state, when I
Okay.
say this is the one state, then the second state, then the third state, and this one is the final state. Why I am saying this is there are three state and one final state? Can anybody tell me? Abhishek, Pratibha,
Sir,
how
can
I
you,
am saying this is the final state?
sir, because it has only one means entry block. There is no
Correct.
transition
A
or
state can have three blocks, which is basically a entry, exit, and transition. But the final state can have only one block, which is called entry block. Got it?
yes, sir.
Yeah. Now let's jump to the part basically. So before jumping, I'll show you one thing. In the basically folder structure, if you go, there is a data folder basically. Okay. So this data folder is, guys, this is very much important. Over here, there is a config file. This is the file basically which is you guys are utilizing. You are not going to hard code anything in your code. When I say hard code, means that you are not supposed to basically provide any static value in your code by in a string quotation. If you want to have something like, let's suppose you having a path, a PDF file path, and that path is basically maybe, let's suppose, some xyz location. That path you can specify over in your settings section. Okay, means that over here I can specify my file path. I can say file path, and that path may be this, the xyz whatever over here I can specify, so that my bot can utilize this particular key for the further processing. Means it can look basically to this key, fetch the value, and look to that particular path, whatever basically I have specified over here, this in the value of this file path. It will basically utilize that particular location to fetch the files, right? Again, if I suppose, let's suppose I am using a queue, okay, and if I have a xyz queue, I'll specify that queue name over here. This is the part where I will going to specify the queue name. Then there is a orchestrator folder. Means that if I am having a specific folder, I can specify that folder over here. Instead of basically, you can say, hard coding anything in my code, I will basically provide that detail in this config file, so that bot can read this config file at a runtime and basically store all the data whatever being present in this Excel file in all these three tabs: string, constant, and asset. I am coming to that part basically what it means to say string, sorry, settings, constant, and assets. I'll basically come to that part, but very first that you need to understand, if I have something which I need to which my bot needed for configuration, I need to basically write it down in the config file only. Make sure that you are not hard coding anything in your code, because it will again prone to change basically. Let's suppose your queue, currently you have specified process abc queue, but tomorrow your manager said that no, production, this naming convention we cannot follow. It should have basically the name as process name, then maybe some queue name, maybe like this xyz underscore something. And if you have hard coded this queue name in your code, it will be again hard. You need to basically again change the code, right? Which is not a better way. You need to always keep everything inside the config file, so that you just need to change in the Excel file. There is no need to change anything in the code. Very first, right? That is why this config file is being used. This is basically a, you can say, very first details for the bot, via which a bot can basically understand the thing. Like right now, you can think like your configuration is nothing but your basic understanding of UiPath. You know that how UiPath work now. If I give you any project now, you can take it up. So whatever the configuration you have done in your mind right now related to the UiPath, that is why basically you are picking up the project. Over here also the bot, basically how bot will basically understand the project. If it is need to take action something, it basically can take on the basis of the configuration detail, and that configuration detail being kept in the config file. And it has three tabs. One is called settings, one is called constant, one is called asset. Settings means that a thing is that which is prone to change as per the environment. Means when I say prone to change as per the environment, means something is basically, not fixed. It might be right now this XYZ, but tomorrow this file path may be something else. I'll kept that part inside the setting tab. Then there is a constant tab. Constant tab means that a thing which is going to be a static, which is not going to change. Like this should mark job as failed. This basically, this is a property. Whenever basically we if there is a if bot has encountered runtime any issue, earlier basically UiPath have a functionality that the job is always marked as successful. It won't mark it as failed. But they later basically changed that functionality and they given this configuration to you. You can basically mark this true or false on the basis of your bot can basically, or your orchestrator can take a action. If the job is getting failed, it will, if on the basis of this config detail over here, it will mark it as failed. Otherwise, if it is true, it will mark it as successful. So that is again configuration detail. So it is constant value. Like this, basically a log message over here. Get transaction log message underscore get transaction data. I don't want it to basically write a hard coded log message as well. I would like to basically write in my config file, and from the config file on the basis of the key I can pick it up the key, and I will basically utilize that key in the log message activity. I'll not write directly as a plain text there. I'll use this key. I'll show you that how it is being using, but just that for understanding, I'm showing to you that this config file, this constant is for whatever basically is static value. I'll kept that part in the constant tab. Setting tab, the value which are prone to change as per the environment, I'll kept that part in the setting tab. The constant tab is that which is the, you can say static value, which basically not going to change. It's a static. Something if they basically a asset part. Now if I come to the asset part, so something if I would like to store in the orchestrator, which is basically, you can say like your email, you want to notify to the business user, you can't kept it in the config file again, because if I will kept in the config file again, basically if tomorrow I would like to change something in the mail notification user detail, it will basically fail over there. I need to change again to the config file, which is not good. I need to basically kept it somewhere in the centralized location, maybe in the orchestrator, in using the asset functionality, which we have already seen. There basically we can kept our asset like maybe an integer format or a boolean format or a plain text. Those asset we can kept it over here, and we can read that asset at a runtime so that UiPath can perform action on the basis of the value what basically provided in the orchestrator. So far so good. Everyone understood this part?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let me close this file and show back to you in the UiPath orchestra, basically RE framework, what it does in the very first step, in the initialization step, what it does. So if I go inside this, so you can see that in the very first is nothing but the try block. This is if I basically, you can say toggle this down. So you can see over here, just basically, just a minute. Yeah. So if I basically, toggle this part, you can see this is nothing but a try block over here. Inside a try block, I am doing something over here. Right now, I am doing so many things. Very first step, I have a variable called system exception variable, which is nothing but it's a system dot exception type variable. Over here, if you see that the variable type of the system exception is nothing but exception type. System dot exception means that we are using, whenever the exception is being occurred, we will initialize that variable to that particular exception to this variable, and further we can basically check it up in our code. If there is any exception being occurred in the initialization step, we can take action whether we want to proceed to the end final state or we wanted to proceed to the get transaction state. Via this variable only we are taking a action. So very first we are saying that it's a nothing, means we are saying it's a null, it's empty, it's nothing. Okay. Then we are saying there is a config over here. This config, if you see, it's nothing but it's a dictionary type. It's what type of dictionary it is? It's a string and object type of this dictionary. Means string as a key basically whatever the keys are being present in the dictionary, are basically as a type of string, and whatever the value of those keys are being present as a object type. Got it? This config variable. Yes.
So, so the config file is what stores the path of the documents, correct?
Not only the storage, the path of the document, the config file is basically related. Right now, Saturn, I'm just giving you a very basic example. How you able to understand the UiPath? Because you know the configuration of the UiPath, right? You basic configuration, you know. That is the configuration. Now again, think about like in a project basically, where you wanted to run a project. If you having some values which are very first need to be there to run your process, those are the value you are kept in the config file.
Okay.
Got it? Not only the file path. I'm not saying it's a always is not going to be a file path. It can be anything, X, Y, Z. You are not hard coding those value in your code. You are kept those value in the config file so that bot can read those config file at a runtime and store it in a dictionary so that it can utilize further processing.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
again, next activity is nothing but a log message. Then there is a invoke workflow activity. This invoke workflow, you already know that if you create any workflow, then you can, call that workflow in another workflow basically by using this activity called invoke workflow. And what workflow it calling? It calling a init all setting workflow. So let me go to the project section and show you something over here. In the project section, you do have one more folder called framework. And the framework basically UiPath have provided you some of the XAML file or some of the workflows already being present over here, like close all application, get transaction data, init all application, init all settings, kill all process, process.xaml, retry count transaction data, then set transaction status, take screenshot. These are the default workflows being provided by the UiPath. And you don't need to basically, like I told you, the config file is nothing but an Excel file. So what UiPath does, it reading that Excel file. How it does? It basically doing inside this init all setting workflow activity. Init all setting XAML file only, and it has how many argument? It has 3 argument. What? Two input argument and one is output argument. So those two input argument is nothing but one is the config file, which is nothing but the path of the config file where it is present. It is present in the data folder. I told you, I shown you just that the config file is being present in the data folder. So it has provided the file of the file path of the config, and then it say that what config seed it basically going to handle or it going to read. Currently, init all settings going to read settings and constant seed only, right? And it is providing in the array, string array basically. And then as finally it basically is going to return a config as a output. And over here, this config is nothing but a dictionary type. If you see that, this is nothing but a dictionary type. So as a return, it will give you a dictionary. It will basically read the data from the Excel, convert the data table into the dictionary and give it back to you. Got it? So let's see how it does. So inside this, if you go to the init all setting, it's not doing anything. It's just that very first it basically initialize the dictionary by basically dictionary variable. Out config is nothing but your dictionary variable. If you see that in a argument, this is your argument out config, and this is basically a type of string. So currently over here it is initializing that only. Very first is it's initializing the dictionary. Then it basically looping to the your seeds what is being provided. So currently we have provided two seeds in array. One is called settings and the second is called constant. So it is basically looping through that and then one by one reading that seed, basically seed data, right? That seed data it is reading over here and storing in a one data table called dt setting and constant data table, right? Once it has the data table, it basically going to loop to that data table. If you see that over here, it looping to that, and that then it basically checking over here. One condition it is checking over here. If you open that condition, it's saying that that particular column, basically name column, because we need only name and value. Description we don't need it over here. We just need that what is the name user has provided, that will going to be as a dictionary key, and whatever value you have provided, or in a file, the value you have provided, that is going to be a dictionary value or a key value for that, right? So over here, it is just checking that the row name is not empty, means the name value is not empty. It is discarding those rows wherever the name is empty. And then basically, if it is not empty, then it is going to providing that key directly, basically out config row name, means this is the way of having a, or you can say storing a key in the dictionary. First thing is that we are storing a key, we are initializing a key, and then we in a key basically we are storing a value called whatever value we do have present over there in the value column for that particular name. So if I open again for you the dictionary or the basically config file, so you can see that in the every setting and constant, we do have two column. One is the name column, one is the value column. So we are reading very first the name, and this name we are creating a whatever name we have given over here. This is our name, right? So this is nothing but it's going to be a one key for me in the dictionary. And the what the value is basically, this is the value is going to be for this key. Then this is the value for this key. And this is the value, this is the key, and this is the value. So like that, basically, it is going to create the key value pair for me in the dictionary. Got it or not? Or any confusion in this?
I got it.
Got it,
Okay,
sir.
just a second. Yeah. Now, once we basically read this city is, and it will do the same step again for the constant tab as well. Okay. Once it basically generated the converted the dictionary or you can say data from the setting and constant tab, now it will basically going to read the orchestrator or you can say asset tab as well. If we have provided any assets or not. So if it will going to read that asset tab, and then if you go over here again, it is what it doing. It just that it just basically reading the asset sheet, and then it basically looping through the asset, and then it's going to read using the get orchestrator asset. It's nothing but the get asset activity. If you go to over here, it's nothing but get robot asset activity, which I have already shown to you guys. So over here we are providing the asset name, what basically or you can say folder. We don't need to provide it has basically by default a property is being there, so it's providing the folder name, and then it's providing the asset name over here. So we need to provide the asset name here, what asset we would like to read, and once we have provided that, it will give us the value back, the asset value, right? So means whatever the name we have given over here, let's suppose we have given mail address. Okay, mail address. Let's suppose this is our key and this is our value is nothing but again our orchestrator asset name, right? Not the value. So this is our asset basically. Let's suppose this is the asset we have created in the orchestrator. So what it does over here, if you closely follow, so this is basically trying to read the value of the row asset dot to string, means it is going to read this value. This value it is trying to read row asset value. So nothing, which is nothing but this, right? And then it is going to provide that value inside over here in the get asset, so that it will read that key value from the orchestrator, and that asset value it will store in the value, and finally it will initialize back again with the name. And now our key will become this in the dictionary. This is my key again. The name property will become my key, become my key, and whatever the value I got from the orchestrator as an asset, that is basically become my value for that particular key. Got it or not on this part? Very first we have provided the asset, means what is the asset we having in the orchestrator, which is nothing but we have given over here the name. Once we read that asset, we are again trying to store that asset value in the config file. How we will store? The name property will become whatever the name column we do have over there, whatever the value for the name column, it will become my key, and whatever the value I got from the orchestrator, it will become the value for this key. Got it or not? That is what I'm trying to explain over here.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
I
Got
got it.
Okay. Now, if you see at last basically it gets surrounded with the try catch only. This is nothing basically. This part is gets surrounded with the try catch, and if something gets up, happen over here, it's just that it's checking if basically a row name is not empty. In that scenario, I do have some asset were present over there, and it couldn't able to read that, so it throwing that exception back to the parent block of the try catch, which will nothing but this main block is get executed that time, and it will handle this try block will handle that throw part. Basically, I already shown to you that example as well. Try to rewatch that session if you are not able to comfortable right now what I'm saying. So if something throw from there, this part will handle that throw as well, and it will take action accordingly. And this is what basically we are doing in this initialization step. We are not doing anything over here extra. We have already learned these things. There is nothing new in this RE framework, guys. Don't be scared. This is just that all the plain activities what we have done, they have just basically cascaded those activity in a one skeleton. And this skeleton basically build on the state machines only. Got it?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Now, because we have already stretched it out, let's do one thing. Can I expect from you guys to basically make sure what it is doing next after basically initializing? Means I would like you to everyone that you cover this state machine and this state machine, what it is does there, because this is again nothing else over here. This activity forgot right now. I haven't covered this check should stop what it does. I'll basically talk on the next lecture, but if else we have already covered, right? Then basically inside the, if you go to the this else block, inside there they are calling a get transaction data workflow, and if I go inside that, they are not doing anything. They are just basically fetch the data from the queue. Over here they have used the get transaction item activity or get queue item activity, which we have already shown to you guys, right? Got it or not? Or basically, it's just that fetch the data from the orchestrator, nothing else. Got it? So can
Yes,
I
sir, got.
expect in the next lecture from you guys that you guys can cover this initialization step and get transaction step? A very basic, basically, whatever you are able to understand, just try to understand what it's trying to do over there by basically, seeing these conditions over here. And one more thing I would like to talk before wrapping this session, there are some process level argument as well, guys. Process level argument means till so far you have understood, I believe, workflow level argument. Any workflow can have input and output argument, but your project can also expect some argument. At a runtime, you can give some argument value to your project before basically running. Okay, so these are nothing but your project argument. Currently, you can see that in underscore orchestrator queue name in underscore orchestrator queue folder. These are nothing but your project level argument. We are not going to use, but as a by default, UiPath has provided. Sometime you needed that. There are some scenario might be that basically before executing, you want to pass some data to your bot at a runtime. It's not going to be stored in a asset. It's not going to be stored in a config file. How you will basically pass that via the this argument method of your project. You can pass the data at a runtime when bot is going to execute that project. Got it? So these are the project level argument, and every project level argument again can have input or output. It can provide you some output value at last, or maybe a input. It can expect something as an argument from the user. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
can I
Yes.
basically expect like in a next class, whenever basically we do have a class next, can you cover the initialization state and the get transaction state? Focus on those basic activity, whatever we have covered. If you are not able to understand something, just highlight that I need to basically ask this question, because in a get transaction state, there is a should stop activity, which I am going to cover in the next class. That definitely I'll cover. But there is nothing, guys. Try to basically go through that in the
Yes.
RE framework. You will basically try to find that it's just that basic logic they have written. It's nothing.
So when are you going to post the video so I can just have a recap?
You can basically have to because it's going to be stored